In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the rear shock on this Volvo S60. Let's get started. If you look in between the fender and the wheel, or the tire, you'll see the top of the shock mount right here where it connects onto the body. Use a 10mm socket, break both of these bolts free. In order to speed up the process once they're broken free, just going to use an air ratchet. Top of the shock is free, so let's move underneath. And underneath, if you follow the shock, you'll see an 18mm headed bolt here that holds this onto the knuckle. Remove it. Once you take it out all the way, hold the shock so it doesn't fall down, and remove the bolt. Pull this straight down. To finish the removal process, we have to get the mount off of the actual shock. Use a 13mm socket, remove that mounting nut. There we go. Take the top off, take the boot off. There's also a spacer that fell off. And there's the old shock. We'll recycle this and we'll get the new one in. To reassemble, put on this boot first. Make sure it's seated all the way. Then the little spacer, then the mount, and finally the mounting nut itself. Start it on by hand and make it nice and snug. In our case, the entire shock wants to spin, and to get around that, here's what you're going to have to set up. Locking pliers on the stud with a wrench that fits on the mounting nut. And now you can spin this and thread on the mounting nut. Now hopefully you'll be able to go all the way. Oh, there we go, that just got snug. Now the wrench is starting to skip. So at this point, what I'm going to do is release these. That way I don't damage the mounting nut. I'm going to give it a couple taps with the air gun again. And there we go, because once it bottoms out, you can actually hold this and it'll tighten because the nut is making contact with the mount, so it wants to spin the mount. So if you just hold the mount, it works. But until then, you'll have to hold the stud. So there we have it. Now let's install it in the vehicle. If you haven't already noticed, there was a lot of really bad corrosion built up on the top of this shock mount, so I cleaned it up the best I could. I used a wire wheel and just made sure that it was nice and flat still. It's also important that this gasket is in good condition because it seals up and prevents moisture, debris, and everything, wind noise from coming into the vehicle inside the trunk. So you want to make sure this is still going to seal up on the body. In our case, it's good, but I wanted to make sure that the rest of it is flat so it can sit flush up against the body. The body's good, it's not rusty, it was just a lot of corrosion on the mount itself. With it cleaned up, I will apply an anti-corrosive coating. However, before we continue, we have to prime or start the shock, and that entails pressing it down all the way until it bottoms out. And I like to do this 3 to 5 times. Then you let it come up by itself, and what this will do is it's going to allow all the oils inside to mix. It will offer a longer lifespan of the shock. And if you don't do this right off the bat over bumps, you will most likely hear some clunking. And that's the free play inside that has not been removed by mixing everything up. This has been sitting on the shelf for a while, most likely, so all of the components have settled. All right, we're good. Let's install it. Get the shock back up into position. Line it up down here first. Get the bolt through. Push it up if necessary so it can line up. Make sure this starts smoothly and doesn't cross thread. Once you're sure, bottom it out. Torque this to 81 foot-pounds. Make sure that it's properly positioned on the body, just like this. And start the bolts in. There's one, start the other one. These should be long enough to start in this position like this with the shock mount not up against the vehicle. The only thing you want to make sure is that they don't cross thread and they start smoothly. Now you can just thread them in to pull everything back up. The torque for these is 22 foot-pounds. At this point, you would do the same exact thing to the other side and take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.